Zayd, at 36 years old, was a man who understood the power of a brand. As a senior brand strategist for Coca-Cola North America, he earned a respectable $132,000 a year orchestrating the subtle narratives that made people feel something for a product. He lived his own life with a similar quiet intention, preferring substance over flash. His world was built on solid, reliable things. His premarital bungalow in Atlanta's historic Grant Park, a neighborhood of sturdy craftsman homes and old oak trees, his well-funded 401k, the satisfaction of a garden he tended with his own hands. His life was a carefully curated collection of dependable assets, both financial and emotional. At least he thought it was. It was Wednesday, 9:14 p.m., and the house was quiet. His wife, Neriah, was supposedly upstairs reading. The air was still, thick with the scent of jasmine from the bushes outside the open window. Zayd was doing a final scroll through his Instagram feed before bed, a mindless ritual of tapping through friends' vacation photos and colleagues' work announcements. His thumb stopped. The image on the screen felt like a glitch in his reality. It was a photo of Neriah, but not the Neriah who was just one floor above him. This was Neriah from a few years ago, before him. She was on a beach, her hair in long, beautiful braids whipping in a sea breeze, her smile wider and more unguarded than he'd seen it in years. Next to her, with his arm slung casually around her shoulder, was a man Zayd knew only by name, Cassius, her ex-boyfriend. The photo itself was a jolt, a ghost from a life he was meant to have replaced. But it was the caption, 5 simple words typed out for their 4312 followers to see, that stopped the air in his lungs. I miss us. The words glowed on the screen of his $100 and $200 iPhone 14 Pro. For a full minute, Zayd did not move. He stared at the picture, at the way her head tilted toward Cassius's, the easy intimacy in their posture. The sun-drenched happiness that felt like a direct rebuke of the quiet, stable life he had so carefully provided for her. He had no idea what was coming, but in that moment, he understood that the brand of his marriage had just been publicly, irrevocably destroyed. The foundation he had built his world upon had just revealed itself to be sand. The quiet hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen sounded unnaturally loud, counting out the seconds of his old life as they bled away. He was a man who managed global perceptions for a living, and he had just become a public fool in his own home. Do you know that feeling? The one where the world tilts on its axis, and you realize the story you've been living is a lie? We've seen it happen to friends, and maybe it's happened to you. Let us know in the comments if you've ever had a moment that changed everything. Zayd slowly, deliberately, pressed the side buttons on his phone, capturing a screenshot. Then another, and another, documenting the post, the caption, and the first few comments that were already trickling in. His strategist's mind, the part of him that was cold, analytical, and trained to see 3 steps ahead, was already taking over. The pain was a hot, molten core in his chest, but on the surface, a strange, chilling calm began to settle. The post had been live for 14 minutes. The damage was already done. Now it was a matter of control. Their life together, on the surface, was a portrait of modern black success in Atlanta. Zayd was the anchor, the steady hand. His job, in the gleaming glass towers of Coca-Cola's headquarters on North Avenue, provided a life of comfortable security. He drove a modest 2018 Honda Accord, a practical $24,000 car he'd paid off in 3 years. It was his nature to build equity, not debt. His joy was in the tangible, the scent of tomato plants in his backyard garden on a humid July morning, the weight of a well-made book, the quiet satisfaction of seeing his retirement accounts grow. Neriah was the sparkle. She was all about aesthetics, a trait she was trying to spin into a career as a high-end interior designer. Zayd had been her biggest supporter, her sole investor. He'd paid the $5,000 fee for her LLC formation and website design. When she'd complained her old laptop was too slow for her rendering software, he'd bought her a brand new 16-inch MacBook Pro, a $3,500 machine she'd unwrapped with a cursory, "Thanks, baby," before spending the rest of the evening customizing its settings. He paid the $3,200 monthly rent on their stylish Inman Park apartment, a place she had chosen for its proximity to trendy boutiques and restaurants, despite Zayd owning his bungalow outright just a few miles away. "Grant Park is so sleepy, Zayd," she'd said, wrinkling her nose. "I need to be where the energy is. It's for my brand." Everything was for her brand. The dinners at Bacchanalia, running them $500 for a Tuesday night, were Instagram story fodder. The $2,400 Burberry trench coat he bought her for their second anniversary was worn once for a photo shoot and then relegated to the back of the closet. He remembered a Saturday they spent at the Ponce City Market. Zayd, in his comfortable $45 New Balance sneakers and a simple cotton t-shirt, had just wanted to walk and enjoy the day. Neriah, dressed in a $600 Zimmermann sundress, was constantly stopping to take selfies, adjusting her hair and asking him, "Can you get one of me against this wall? The light is perfect." He loved her, or at least he loved the woman he thought she was. He showed it through acts of service. Every morning, he was the one up at 6 a.m. to make coffee. He'd pack her a lunch, a salad with grilled chicken, an apple, a bottle of water, even though she often texted him around noon to say she was at a client lunch at some expensive cafe. The lunch he'd made left abandoned in the office refrigerator he'd also bought for her small, rented studio space. His love was in the oil changes he got for her white BMW 3 Series, a $43,000 car with a $650 monthly lease payment he co-signed for and paid. It was in the quiet way he'd listen for hours as she talked about fabric swatches and lighting fixtures, his own day at the massive, complex world of Coca-Cola reduced to a simple, "It was fine." He thought this was the rhythm of a supportive partnership. He was the foundation, and she was the beautiful structure they were building on top of it. He had no idea she felt the foundation was a cage. He had made a critical mistake. He had confused her ambition for a shared goal when, in reality, it was a solo flight he was simply expected to finance. The signs were all there. Tiny red flags he'd dismissed as personality quirks. Now, illuminated by the cold blue light of his phone screen, they were assembling themselves into a devastating pattern. The cruelty had been escalating for months, a slow building pressure inside their marriage. It was never a single explosive event, but a series of small, sharp cuts. Zayd's calm, steady nature, the very thing that made him a brilliant strategist, became a target for Neriah's casual disdain. One evening, about 3 months prior, he was excited. He had just successfully managed the launch of a new campaign for Diet Coke, a complex multi-million-dollar project involving dozens of teams across the globe. He came home buzzing with the quiet pride of a job well done. "We hit a 98% positive sentiment score in the first 24 hours, he told her as they sat in their living room, the television playing a reality show she loved. The room was decorated to her exact specifications, a sea of white and gray furniture that cost him over $15,000 but never felt comfortable. Neriah didn't look up from her phone. "That's nice, honey." She was scrolling, a faint, dismissive smile on her face. "It's more than nice, Neriah. This is a huge win. It could be a major factor in my performance review for the VP track." She finally glanced at him, her eyes flat. A VP of selling sugar water to the masses. Groundbreaking. She laughed, a short, sharp sound that felt like a slap. "I was just looking at Cassius's new gallery show in Miami. He's making real art, changing the way people see the world." The comparison was deliberate, a perfectly aimed dart. Zayd felt the air leave his chest. My job pays for this apartment. It pays for your car. It pays for your brand. His voice was tight, but he kept it level. Don't be so transactional, Zayd, she said, her tone suddenly wounded, as if he were the one being cruel. It's not about the money. It's about passion. It's about living a life that means something. You're so safe. That was her favorite insult, safe. To her, it was synonymous with boring, uninspired, and small. To him, it meant security, stability, and peace. He built safety so she could fly. He never realized she wanted to fly away from him. Another time, he tried to plan a romantic weekend. I was thinking we could drive up to the Blue Ridge Mountains next month, he suggested one Sunday morning. Rent a cabin, go for a hike, just us. He envisioned crisp autumn air, the vibrant colors of the leaves, a crackling fire. Neriah shuddered theatrically. A cabin? With bugs? Zayd, no, that sounds miserable. If we're going away, I want to go to South Beach. I need energy, excitement. I want to be around beautiful people. She was already on her phone looking up flights to Miami. The conversation was over. His desire was irrelevant. The outrage accumulated in 1,000 similar moments. There was the time his sister, a kind, warm woman, who worked as a public school teacher, came over for dinner. Neriah was polite on the surface, but Zayd saw the constant, subtle eye rolls. After his sister left, Neriah sprayed a $120 diptyque room spray around the living room. Her perfume is just so strong, she'd said, a thinly veiled insult about his sister's more modest department store fragrance. Then there was the constant gnawing presence of Cassius. He was a ghost who haunted their marriage, conjured by Neriah whenever she wanted to highlight Zayd's perceived inadequacies. Cassius the free spirit. Cassius the true artist. Cassius, who was, according to Neriah, living an authentic life. She never mentioned that Cassius was also perpetually broke, living off a string of girlfriends and small art sales that barely covered his rent in a tiny, run-down studio. Zayd knew this because he'd done his research. A strategist always does his research. He saw the late-night texts that would make her smile, the way she'd angle her phone away from him. When he'd ask who she was talking to, she'd wave a dismissive hand. Just a client, you don't know them. The lies were effortless, constant. She was living a double life right in front of him, and he was the quiet, stable scenery in the background of her real drama. He had thought his patience was a virtue, a sign of his deep love and commitment. He saw now it had been perceived as weakness. She didn't respect his patience. She exploited it. Each dismissive comment, each cruel comparison, each casual lie was a shovelful of dirt being tossed onto the grave of their marriage. He just hadn't been willing to look down and see it. The Instagram post wasn't the beginning of the end. It was simply the public unveiling of a conclusion she had reached long ago. Thursday morning, 6:47 a.m. The sun hadn't yet risen over Atlanta, and a soft, steady rain was falling against the windows of Zayd's bungalow. He had moved from the apartment in Inman Park last night, telling Neriah he needed to check on some mail at his old place. It was a lie, his first in a new war of them. He hadn't slept. He had spent the night in the quiet stillness of his own house, the one he'd bought with his own money years before he ever met her. The house felt like a fortress now, a sanctuary. He sat at his simple wooden dining table, a $400 piece from West Elm that he'd owned for a decade. In his hand was his phone. He opened Instagram. The post was still there, a digital monument to her betrayal. In the harsh light of a new day, it looked even more grotesque. The photo of Neriah and Cassius, their skin glowing, their smiles carefree. And the caption, "I miss us." In the past 9 hours, the post had taken on a life of its own. It had 283 likes. The comment section was a battlefield of speculation and gossip. OMG Neriah, What does this mean? Spill the tea. You two were always soulmates. Trouble in paradise? A few people, friends of Zayd's, had posted confused emojis. One brave soul had commented, "Aren't you married?" His own friends had started texting him around midnight. "Yo, Zayd, you see Neriah's IG? Call me, man. Everything okay?" What the hell is going on? He had put his phone on silent, letting the messages accumulate unanswered. Now he read through them, a clinical detachment settling over him. The humiliation was a physical sensation, a hot flush on his deep brown skin. He imagined his colleagues at Coca-Cola seeing it, his family, the entire curated world of their social circle. She hadn't just disrespected him, she had publicly shamed him. She had turned their private life into public entertainment. His hands, usually so steady, had a slight tremor as he tapped the screen. He took a new set of screenshots, the photo, the caption, the likes, the ever-growing list of comments. He methodically saved each image to a new, password-protected folder on his cloud drive, labeling it simply Evidence NW. The W was for her married name, a name he now realized she wore as loosely as the 2400 Burberry coat. He thought about her, likely still asleep in the expensive bed he paid for, in the trendy apartment he financed, completely unaware that her husband was not just hurt, but was meticulously documenting her every move. The initial shock, the white-hot pain of the night before, was crystallizing into something else. It was cold, hard, and clear. It was purpose. He was a brand strategist. He knew that when a brand's integrity is compromised, you don't just issue a vague apology. You take decisive action. You control the narrative. You cut the losses and protect the core assets. He looked around his small, quiet bungalow. He thought about his stock portfolio, his retirement savings, the sweat equity he had poured into his career. These were his core assets. She had just declared herself a liability, a toxic one. The rain outside intensified, washing over the windows in sheets. It felt like a cleansing. The world he had known was being washed away, and he had to decide what to build in its place. He would not be the sad, cuckolded husband. He would not be a victim in her messy public drama. He would be the quiet, devastating consequence of her own actions. The day was a masterclass in strategic restraint. Zayd knew that any emotional outburst, any angry confrontation, would be exactly what Neriah expected. It would give her the drama she craved and allow her to paint him as the volatile, unreasonable one. He would give her nothing. He would give her silence and normalcy, and that, he knew, would be more unnerving than any tirade. He drove from his bungalow back to the Inman Park apartment around 8 a.m. He walked in, his face a calm, neutral mask. Neriah was in the kitchen, dressed in a $250 silk robe, making a smoothie in their $600 Vitamix blender. She was humming. She didn't look like a woman who had just detonated her marriage online. She looked serene, almost cheerful. This was the first and most profound of her lies that day. Her entire demeanor was a performance of innocence. "Morning, baby," she said, not meeting his eye. "You were out early." "Just had to handle a few things at the other house," Zayd replied, his voice even. He poured himself a cup of coffee from the pot he had set to brew automatically every morning. It was a small domestic ritual that suddenly felt absurd. He was acting out a scene from a life that no longer existed. He leaned against the $4,000 marble countertop she'd insisted on when they moved in. "Sleep well?" "Like a baby," she chirped. "I had the weirdest dream about us being in Paris." A casual, throwaway lie, designed to create a sense of shared intimacy where none existed. He just nodded, sipping his coffee. Inside, his mind was racing, cataloging every detail. The humming, the avoidance of his gaze, the fabricated dream. This was not a woman consumed by guilt. This was a woman who believed she had no reason to feel any. Later that morning, around 10:30 a.m., he executed his next move. From his office at the Coca-Cola Tower, he called her. "Hey, I'm an idiot. I think I left my work ID badge on the dresser. Can you check for me? I can't get into the executive wing without it." "Oh, okay, hold on," she said, a hint of annoyance in her voice at being disturbed. He heard the rustle of her moving. He stayed silent, listening. In the background, he heard a faint voice, a man's voice, then a muffled sound, as if she had covered the phone's microphone. A few seconds passed. "Nope, not here," she said, her voice slightly breathless. "You must have it with you." "Are you sure? Could you look again?" he pressed, testing the lie. "Zayd, I looked. It's not here," she snapped. "I'm in the middle of something. I have a client call." She hung up. He hadn't left his badge. It was in his pocket, but he had confirmed what he suspected. She wasn't alone. Her client call was another lie, clumsily executed. He sat at his desk, staring out at the Atlanta skyline. The glass and steel towers felt cold, distant, a reflection of the emotional space that now separated him from his wife. He felt nothing. The pain was packed away, replaced by a grim, methodical focus. He was gathering evidence, not for a court of law, but for the court of his own conscience. He needed to be absolutely certain that the man he was about to become was justified. His final test of the day came that afternoon. He sent her a text message at 4 p.m. "Thinking of picking up some steaks from Kroger for dinner. Sound good?" The 3 dots indicating she was typing appeared, then disappeared. 5 minutes went by. 10. Finally, a reply came through. "Don't bother, I'm going to be working late at the studio. Just grab something for yourself." He knew her studio. It was a small 200-square-foot room in a shared workspace building that closed at 5 p.m. There was no working late. It was another lie. Another door quietly closed in his face. He typed back a simple "okay." He left work at exactly 5:30 p.m. and drove not to the apartment, but back to his bungalow in Grant Park. He had played the part of the normal, unsuspecting husband for an entire day. He had smiled, made small talk, and acted out the mundane rituals of their shared life, all while the knowledge of her betrayal sat like a stone in his gut. He had given her every opportunity to come clean, to show a sliver of remorse. She had done the opposite. She had doubled down on the deception, building a wall of casual lies around herself. She had no idea that he wasn't on the outside of that wall, confused and hurt. He was inside, taking notes. Friday was a day of action. Zayd sent an email to his boss at 7 a.m., taking a personal day. He wouldn't be going to the gleaming Coca-Cola Tower. His business today was far more personal. At 9:30 a.m., he walked into the lobby of a discreet, high-end law firm in Buckhead. The office was the epitome of expensive, understated power, dark wood, brushed steel, and abstract art. He had made the appointment yesterday, after a few hours of intensive research. He was shown into a corner office with a panoramic view of the city. Behind a massive mahogany desk sat Alana Pierce, one of the most respected and feared divorce attorneys in Atlanta. She was a sharp, elegant black woman in her late 40s, wearing an $8,700 Armani suit that radiated competence. Her billing rate, he knew, was $950 an hour. He considered it an investment in his future peace. "Mr. Williams," she said, her voice smooth and professional, "thank you for coming in. Please have a seat. Tell me what I can do for you." Zayd sat down, placing his leather briefcase on the floor beside him. He did not launch into an emotional story. He was a strategist, presenting a case. "Misa Pierce, I'm here because I intend to file for divorce from my wife, Neriah Williams. I want it to be as swift and clean as possible." Alana leaned forward, her expression unreadable. Divorce is rarely clean, Mr. Williams. What are the grounds? Infidelity and public humiliation, Zayd said calmly. He took out his iPad Pro. On Wednesday evening at 9:14 p.m., my wife posted this to her public Instagram account. He turned the iPad around. Alana looked at the screen, her eyes scanning the photo of Neriah and Cassius, then the caption, "I miss us." She was silent for a moment, absorbing it. She scrolled with her finger, reading the comments. "I see," she said, her tone shifting slightly. There was a new edge of interest in her voice. "This is brazen." "That's one word for it," Zayd agreed. "I have screenshots of the post from Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and this morning. I also have a log of text messages and phone calls from yesterday where she repeatedly lied about her whereabouts and activities." He then proceeded to lay out the financial landscape of their marriage with the precision of a corporate treasurer. "I own a home in Grant Park, purchased in 2015, 3 years prior to our marriage. The deed is solely in my name. Current estimated value is approximately $650,000, with $180,000 remaining on the mortgage. My 401k, held with Coca-Cola, has a current balance of $310,282. My portfolio of company RSUs, restricted stock units, is valued as of this morning at $227,000. These are all premarital or direct corporate compensation assets." He continued. "My wife came into the marriage with approximately $2,000 in savings and $18,000 in student loan debt, which I have since paid off for her. She operates an interior design business which I funded. Her declared income for the last tax year was $14,200. I have bank statements showing my funding of her business and personal expenses, including the lease on her $43,000 BMW, which is co-signed by me." Alana listened, her fingers steepled. She was visibly impressed. Most clients came in with a chaotic storm of emotions and a shoebox of crumpled receipts. Zayd had come in with a P&L statement for the dissolution of his marriage. "She made a critical, amateur mistake," Alana said, a thin, satisfied smile on her lips. "She put her indiscretion in writing and published it. In Georgia, an adulterous spouse can be barred from receiving alimony. This post is Exhibit A. It's a public declaration of her emotional, if not physical, affair. It shows a complete disregard for the marital contract." "I don't want to destroy her," Zayd said, and he meant it. "I just want to protect what I've built. I want to be severed from her completely. No alimony, no claim on my premarital assets or my retirement. She can have her personal belongings and whatever is in her own bank account, which is less than $1,000. That is more than fair. It is generous," Alana stated. "So, what is our strategy?" Zayd leaned forward. "She made a public statement. I believe we should issue a public response." For the first time, Alana Pierce looked genuinely surprised and then intrigued. "Go on." "I want to comment on her post," Zayd said, the words coming out cold and clear. "I want to respond directly to her caption. And then, on Monday morning, I want her served with the papers." Alana stared at him for a long moment, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Mr. Williams," she said, leaning back in her $4,000 Herman Miller chair, "I like your style. Let's draft a comment." For the next hour, the high-powered attorney and the methodical brand strategist crafted 5 perfect, devastating sentences that would bring Neriah's world crashing down. The strike was not an act of passion. It was an act of precision, executed with the cold-blooded calm of a surgeon. Zayd spent the weekend at his bungalow. He did not drink. He did not rage. He worked in his garden, pulling weeds with a methodical focus, his hands covered in the rich Georgia soil. He cooked for himself, simple meals of fish and vegetables. He read a biography of Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius. He was preparing himself, reinforcing the walls of his own inner citadel. He was detaching from the emotional chaos Neriah had created, and anchoring himself in logic and strategy. He and Alana had finalized the plan. The divorce petition was drafted, citing adultery, and was ready to be filed first thing Monday morning. A process server was on standby. The joint credit cards had been flagged for cancellation, effective Monday at 9 a.m. Everything was in place. All that was left was the public declaration. On Sunday evening at 9:14 p.m., exactly 96 hours after Neriah had made her post, Zayd sat in his study. The room was filled with books on marketing strategy, history, and economics, the things she had called clutter. He opened his laptop, a functional Dell that cost a third of her MacBook, and navigated to Instagram. Her post was still up. It was a testament to her arrogance and her complete underestimation of him. She clearly believed he was either oblivious or too weak to do anything about it. The post now had over 600 likes. The comments were a swirling cesspool of gossip and speculation. Cassius himself had even commented with a single, smug emoji, a flame. Zayd's heart rate was steady. His breathing was even. He felt a profound, almost spiritual calm. This was not revenge. This was an alignment. It was the universe rebalancing itself after a gross injustice. He was simply the instrument. He clicked on the comment field. His fingers moved with purpose across the keyboard, typing the words he and Alana had so carefully crafted. They were simple, direct, and irrefutable. They were designed not to argue, but to state a fact and announce a consequence. He typed, "I don't know who us is, but us, you and I are married, or at least we are for now." He paused, letting the weight of the first sentences settle. Then the final, surgical cut. "I'm still your husband. See you at the lawyer's Monday." He read it over once. It was perfect. It was calm. It was final. It was devastatingly public. He hit post. He did not wait to see the reaction. He did not linger to watch the fallout. He closed the laptop. He stood up, went to his bedroom, and turned off his phone, severing his connection to the digital world. He had launched the missile. He did not need to watch it hit the target. The silence in his house was absolute. He had taken back control of his own narrative. Meanwhile, on the internet, a firestorm was igniting. His comment, pinned to the top by the algorithm's cruel logic, landed like a bomb. The first like appeared in seconds, then 10, then 50. A friend of Neriah's, one of the ones who had posted heart emojis, commented, "OMG Zayd?" Someone else wrote, "This is the most savage thing I have ever seen on Instagram." Screenshots were taken instantly. The post, with Zayd's comment front and center, began to spread like wildfire across social media platforms. It went from private gossip among their circle to a viral moment. People who didn't know Zayd or Neriah were weighing in, captivated by the cold, public justice of it all. "See you at the lawyers." Monday started trending in the Atlanta area. Zayd knew none of this. He was sleeping. A deep and dreamless sleep for the first time in 4 days. While he slept, his quiet, devastating reply was dismantling Neriah's curated reality, like by like. By the time he woke up on Monday morning, his comment would have 10,247 likes, and the world as Neriah knew it would be gone forever. He had given her a brand, and now he had taken it away. What do you think of Zayd's response? Was it too harsh, or was it the perfect clapback? Let us know your thoughts below. We read every single one. The consequences cascaded with brutal, systematic efficiency. For Neriah, Monday morning began not with a smoothie, but with a horrifying realization. Her phone, which had been buzzing intermittently all night, was now a relentless torrent of notifications. She woke up, annoyed, and glanced at the screen. She saw dozens of missed calls from friends and her sister. She saw hundreds of new Instagram notifications. Confused, She opened the app, and there it was. Her post, with Zayd's comment sitting at the top like a death sentence. Her blood ran cold. She read it once, twice, her mind struggling to process the words. See you at the lawyer's Monday? Today was Monday. Her first instinct was panic. Her fingers, fumbling, tried to delete the comment, but it was too late. Then she tried to delete the entire post, but her phone was lagging from the sheer volume of activity. Finally, she managed to remove it, but she knew with a sickening certainty that the damage was done. The internet is forever. Her panic quickly curdled into rage. How dare he? How dare he humiliate her this way? She grabbed her phone to call him, to scream at him, but her call went straight to voicemail. She left a furious, sputtering message. Zayd, what the hell is this? You think this is funny? You are going to regret this for the rest of your life. Call me back now. She tried his number again. Voicemail. She left another message, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and a new, creeping fear. You can't do this to me. I will destroy you. You have no idea who you're messing with. At 9:05 a.m., her world began to unravel in earnest. She was on the phone with her sister, trying to explain the situation through hysterical sobs, when the doorbell rang. She ignored it, but the ringing was insistent. Annoyed, she went to the door and flung it open, ready to yell at whoever it was. A nondescript man in a polo shirt stood there. Neriah Williams? He asked. Yes, she snapped. You've been served, he said, handing her a thick manila envelope and walking away without another word. She stood in the doorway, the envelope feeling impossibly heavy in her hand. She tore it open. The formal legal language of the divorce petition swam before her eyes. Irreconcilable differences, adultery. It cited the Instagram post as evidence. It stated Zayd's claim to all premarital assets, including the Grant Park bungalow and his retirement funds. It made no mention of alimony. It was a document of total clinical annihilation. The second blow landed minutes later. She tried to order an Uber to go see her mother, needing comfort, but the app notified her that her payment method was declined. She tried the joint credit card. Declined. Confused, she tried to log into their shared bank account online. Access denied. Zayd had cut her off. The $5,000 monthly allowance he deposited for her business expenses was gone. The river of his money, which had irrigated every corner of her life, had been dammed. The social fallout was just as swift. The friends who had cheered on her post were now silent. A few sent her text messages like, "Wow, Neriah, this is a mess." No one offered support. They were distancing themselves from the drama, from the woman who had been so publicly and cleanly defeated. She tried to call Cassius, the man for whom she had torched her life. He didn't answer. An hour later, he posted a story on his own Instagram. A black screen with white text. Please don't drag me into your drama. Wishing everyone peace. He had abandoned her on the battlefield he had helped create. By noon, Neriah was in a full-blown panic. The rent on the $3,200 a month apartment was due in a week. The $650 lease payment on her BMW was due in 10 days. She had $847 in her personal checking account. Her aspirational life, built on Zayd's six-figure salary, had been a beautiful, fragile illusion. Now the lights were on, and the illusion had vanished. She was left with a leased German car she couldn't afford, an apartment she would be evicted from, and a reputation that was now permanently stained. She sat on the floor of the perfectly decorated living room, surrounded by thousands of dollars of furniture that wasn't really hers, and for the first time, she understood the true cost of her actions. It was everything. A year passed. The viral storm subsided, becoming a piece of Atlanta social media lore. For Neriah, life became a hard lesson in consequences. She lost the apartment and the BMW. After a humiliating legal battle where Zayd's evidence was irrefutable, she walked away with her personal belongings and a court order affirming she had no claim to his assets or any form of alimony. The judge had been particularly unimpressed by the "I miss us" post. She moved into her sister's spare bedroom in a cramped apartment in Smyrna, a world away from the trendy energy of Inman Park. Her interior design brand evaporated. No one wanted to hire a designer associated with such public messiness. She ended up taking a job as a hostess at a chain restaurant, earning $15 an hour plus tips. The harsh reality of her choices reflected in every polite smile she forced for customers. For Zayd, life did the opposite. It blossomed. The divorce was a clean cut. He kept his Grant Park bungalow, his Coca-Cola RSUs, which had appreciated to nearly $280,000, and his entire retirement fund. Free from the constant financial and emotional drain of his marriage, his life expanded. He poured his energy into his work and his community. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, he was promoted to Vice President of Brand Strategy for Emerging Markets, a significant step up that came with a salary of $195,000 and a new level of creative control. The glass towers of the Coca-Cola headquarters no longer felt like a symbol of emotional distance, but a place of purpose and achievement. He found he was a natural leader, not just a strategist. He started a mentorship program within his department, taking on 3 young, ambitious Black strategists from Georgia State University as his personal apprentices. He found immense satisfaction in sharing his knowledge, in helping them navigate the complex corporate world, in building them up. He would meet with them for coffee, not at expensive cafes, but at the Starbucks on campus, buying them a $5 latte and giving them $1 million worth of career advice. His personal life found a new, quieter rhythm. His bungalow, once just a piece of real estate, became a true home. The garden flourished under his care. He built a new bluestone patio with his own hands, a project that took him 3 months of weekends and left him with a deep sense of accomplishment. His home was filled not with expensive, sterile furniture, but with things that held meaning: bookshelves overflowing with books, framed photos of his family, and art he bought from local Atlanta artists. He spent his weekends walking the winding paths of Piedmont Park, the Atlanta skyline in the distance. The sun on his deep brown skin felt like a blessing. He started dating again, not with any urgency, but with a new clarity about what he wanted. He met a woman named Imani, a landscape architect who loved the scent of soil as much as he did. Their first date was a walk through the Atlanta Botanical Garden. She didn't ask what he did for a living until their third date. She was more interested in the story behind the small scar on his hand from a mishap while building his patio than the brand of his watch, a simple, elegant $800 Tissot. Their connection was built on shared values, not shared aesthetics. It was in the easy silences, the shared laughter over a simple meal cooked at home, the way her hand felt in his as they walked through his neighborhood. She loved his bungalow, especially the garden. She helped him plant a bed of heirloom roses. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Zayd was sitting on his new patio, a glass of iced tea in his hand, watching Imani sketch out plans for a new flower bed. The air was filled with the scent of blooming roses and the sound of distant laughter from the park. He felt a profound sense of peace, a wealth that had nothing to do with his bank account. The moral of the story, he realized, isn't about revenge. Revenge is a hot, messy fire that consumes you. This was about justice, which is a cold, clean instrument that simply restores balance. True wealth isn't found in public validation or the curated perfection of a social media feed. It's not in the $43,000 car or the $2,400 coat. True character isn't about being exciting or artistic. It's about integrity, kindness, and keeping your word. The most valuable assets are the ones that can't be bought: peace of mind, self-respect, and the quiet joy of a life built on a foundation of truth. He had lost a wife, but he had gained himself, and that was the most profitable exchange of his life. We all build our lives around a certain story, but what happens when you realize the story needs a new ending? Thank you for joining us on Love Beyond Pride. If Zayd's journey resonated with you, please consider subscribing to our channel and sharing this story with someone who needs to hear it. You never know who you might inspire to find their own path to growth.